James Stokoe is one of my favorite cartoonists going today. All of his incredible amount of detailed line work in his artwork is mind-blowing. It's just, you're just poring over every single page looking at all the little details and hatching and things that he adds, Easter eggs and the Will Elder chicken fat and everything he adds to his artwork. Last year, during my 31 Days of Horror comics, I showed off Alien Dead Orbit, one of my favorite horror comics of all time. But there's one of his titles that he worked on with Mark Andrew Smith that doesn't get talked about enough. And I'm here today to correct that. Today's topic is going to be about Sullivan Sluggers by Mark Andrew Smith and James Stokoe. Stay tuned and watch this video until the end. And we're back. My name is Taylor. This is Taylor Talks Comics. Thank you for joining me. Please give the video a thumbs up, comment down below with your thoughts, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm doing 31 days of horror comics all throughout the month of October, and I have a handy-dandy playlist set up called Halloween Horrors 2025 if you missed out on any of the previous videos and you want to catch up. But yes, today we're talking about Sullivan Sluggers by Mark Andrew Smith and James Stokoe. I think this one was one of the early Kickstarter comics that came out, and was kind of self-published through that. I got my copy from a used bookstore, so I'm not really sure how the original publishing worked, but an awesome collection, and I want to show it off. Here's the slipcase, though, and it says Volume 1 on it, but there's never been a Volume 2, so I don't know if that was in the plans to do a Volume 2, we just never got it. I don't know. And here's the back cover, and it has just an amazing premise. Long past their former glory, the minor league sluggers get an invitation to play a baseball game in a cursed small town. After the 7th inning stretch, the sun goes down, and the dysfunctional teammates find themselves fighting for their lives against a town of flesh-eating monsters. Aren't you just ready to sign up for that? And it does say Kickstarter edition on the bottom, so I'm assuming that I was right in that. I think it came with trading cards too, if I'm not mistaken. It did, right here. It came with art print of the Sullivan Sluggers, and then trading cards. I was happy that I bought that's used, and these were all still intact. But yeah, they're like baseball cards of some of the players with some stats on the back. Really cool. And then the book itself, it's not a wraparound cover, but I'm going to show it off all at once. Just amazing James Stokoe artwork. So you have a minor league baseball team fighting monsters and James Stokoe doing the artwork. What more do you want? And it came with a nice ribbon as well. Always a nice addition to every book. And then here's the title page. And then we dive right into the story. But yeah, this is like your typical minor league team. It kind of reminds me of, like, as far as like the team goes and their style of living life and traveling from city to city to challenge other baseball teams. But the personalities kind of remind me of like Slapshot, the hockey movie, if you're familiar with that. Because they all have like distinct personalities among them. Each character does. And the way that they coexist and kind of interact with each other is always like leads to a lot of comedic ideas and things. So they're traveling to another city to fight this. They're traveling to another city to play this baseball team that has challenged them. And when they get there, they see all these like zombie corpses hanging from this tree, and they're instantly like, what the heck? Where are we? And then they're just going on, traveling. And I love that they're always in their baseball uniforms too. And they go and they start playing the game. No big deal. It does remind me too of like, when you think of like baseball mixed with the horror genre, I always instantly go to Foul Play by Jack Davis, where like they're playing with like a corpse's head for the baseball and human entrails as the baseball paths and things. But then these monsters just start popping out of people's mouths as the sun goes down. And now you just get into like this awesome monster slasher flick of these baseball players fighting these giant monsters. The fact that this wasn't adapted into a movie, I think, was a huge miss. But I love that we have a comic book of it, because that's all I need. I love James Stokoe's, like, he has so many inspirations that he wears on his sleeve, and one of them is like anime or manga with these speed lines that he brings in sometimes. And since his artwork is so detailed and things, he doesn't have a large output of comic book issues or projects that he puts out. He seems to only be able to put together like 4 or 5 issues of comics a year max. But everything we get from him, I'm excited about. He has a issue of the Twilight Zone coming out, issue number 3 of the IDW run coming out in January. Orphan and the Five Beasts, is that what it is called? Orphan and the Five Beasts is a samurai story that I really enjoy. As I mentioned in the preamble, Aliens Dead Earth is amazing, as is Godzilla Half Century War, are all amazing James Stokoe projects. But yeah, this is so like cinematic in the way it's told. It feels like an 80s slasher movie or zombie movie, or, you know, they have these giant, like, even almost like Lovecraftian type monsters, and they're just fighting for survival. So it becomes like this zombie survival tale where you have this team trying to join together as they're fighting these monsters. And you get an old man with a chainsaw. What more do you want in a horror story? I love this shot too, this 2-page spread. This could have been a cover of a comic. And just look at these monster designs by James Stokoe. Just amazing work. And definitely, this one almost looks like a xenomorph, which would, you know, he would eventually, after this, do Aliens Dead Orbit, which is my favorite Aliens comic. This, like, exit wound, but with, like, a laser through this monster's neck. Just so much fun. I would definitely seek this out if you don't already have a copy. Seek it out on eBay or used bookstores or wherever you can find it, because I don't think it's in print anywhere anymore. I'm kind of surprised that Mark Andrew Smith and James Stokoe haven't brought this back to print with a publisher like Image or Dark Horse that James Stokoe's worked with recently. Or even IDW, I guess. His Godzilla stories with IDW. But I don't want to spoil how this ends, because it's just such a fun story and tale. The way the monster, like, it has like almost like a shonen jump, or shonen manga type feel to it, where like it's increasingly bad levels, like the stakes and the monsters just get bigger and more threatening as they go on. Obviously you can see that there's a religious motif here. In the back matter, we have some pinups and things. This is by James Stokoe. This one's by James Herron. This is a James Herron piece on the back. James Herron has a very similar style to James Stokoe. Obviously, you can point out that it's different than his, but they still have like that ultra detailed, grimy, almost ghastly Graham Ingalls type style to them. Here's Troy Galuzzi, Matthew Weldon, and Rodrigo Avilés. There's so many cool things you could do with a baseball player nailing a monster with a baseball bat. G. Hale, Dan Hibb. I don't know why this is in a subgenre of horror comics, like baseball players fighting monsters. Carl Savage, Xerxo G. Penalta. I feel like I think that's how you pronounce that. And then on Twitter, you can follow these. That's how old this comic is. But yeah, this came out, I want to say 2009 to 2012 is when it's copyright. So yeah, it was one of the early Kickstarter comics. And I think it's just amazing. I think it was one of James Stokoe's properties that don't get talked about enough. And they had some cool little additions, like baseball cards to go with the baseball team. What more do you want? But yeah, this is definitely a comic that I feel like is under the radar that should be talked about more. It's Sullivan Sluggers by James Stokoe and Mark Andrew Smith. Let me know in the comments what your favorite James Stokoe comic is. If you've picked this up before. Your favorite Kickstarter comics. Whatever you want to talk about, I reply to all comments. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And keep talking comics.